In the GCC, we have an issue with Qatar. We hope that this issue will go away soon. The issue goes back to 1995, when the Emir's father took over the country, began to flirt with the Muslim Brotherhood, began to interfere in the affairs of our countries, and we tried for more than 10 years, 15 years in fact, to persuade him to cease and desist from such activities, but it didn't work. In 2013, we withdrew our ambassadors. In 2014, the Qataris agreed to stop their interference in the affairs of our countries. They signed an agreement to that effect, but didn't implement any of it. Our policy with regards to Qatar is very simple. We say no to terrorism, no to terror financing, no to spreading hate and extremism, and no to interfering in the affairs of other countries. I think every single man and woman in this room would agree with these principles. That's what we want Qatar to do. To have known terror financiers operate openly and freely in your capital city is not acceptable. To have your media be a platform in which your senior religious figures condone suicide bombings is not acceptable. To recruit members of royal families and religious scholars and tribal leaders from your neighboring countries in order to cause mischief in those countries is not acceptable. To connect Gaddafi with a Saudi dissident in London that the Qataris were funding, who then puts Gaddafi's intelligence service in touch with a cell in Mecca with the objective of assassinating our then Crown Prince, later King, is not acceptable. To be caught on tape talking to Gaddafi and telling Gaddafi that you're doing all these things to Saudi Arabia and that in 10 years there will be no monarchy in Saudi Arabia is not acceptable. I think people in the West look at Qatar, they see a young country with a young leadership, they see foreign universities, they see museums, they see
football World Cup.
The Paris Saint-Germain, they see beautiful buildings that the Qataris acquire, and it gives them an image of modernity and reasonableness. But what you don't see is the dark side that I just mentioned. Allowing people to raise money for terror groups, allowing your platforms, media platforms, to be used to condone suicide bombings and hate and insightfulness is not acceptable. Trying to undermine your neighboring countries is also not acceptable. So what we're saying to our Qatari friends is you've got to stop this so that we can have normal relations with you again. What have they done since we took these steps? They signed an MOU with the US on terror financing, which they had refused to do for years. They changed their laws to allow the introduction of evidence put forth by a foreign government, which they had refused to do for years. They stopped their funding to al-Nusra and to Hamas, which allowed the Palestinian government to gain control over the Gaza Strip. So all of these are positive developments, and we want the Qataris to do more in order for us to normalize our relationship with them. We have taken steps to ensure that there's very little damage to the GCC as a consequence of this action. The GCC military exercises continue, even with Qatar participating. The GCC ministerial committees continue to operate, even with Qatar participating, so that we minimize any impact this has on the GCC. But we cannot allow things to continue, as they say, business as usual. We have got to have zero tolerance for terrorism, for extremism, and for terror financing. And this is the objective that we've taken with Qatar.